My name is Darby. I work at NORD as a Community Engagement Manager. I'm excited to introduce our next session. I need to move these up. I'm crouching. I don't know if everyone can see me crouch. There we go. That's a little bit better. All right. I'm excited to introduce our next session, Health Equity for the Whole Rare Disease Community. In this session, our panelists will share their experiences and provide insight on how we can all be part of change to address inequities in our healthcare system. Our moderator for this session is Viridiana Murillo, Pediatric Genetic and Rare Disease Scientist at Científica Latino. Viri is joined on stage. Viri, you can come right up. Viri is joined on stage by Gina Glass, Executive Director of Dreamsickle Kids, Rigo Garcia, Executive Director at the Hemophilia Foundation of Southern California, and Magnolia Wang, Founder and Lead Advocate at stack3.org. We have Viri, Rigo, Gina, and Magnolia.
Buenos días.
Thank you.
Buenos días. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, my heart's still feeling all the emotions. That was thank you so much for that keynote. Really tough to follow that, but we will do our very best, and I am so glad to be here with each of you today. And so we'll kick off our panel. Like Darby mentioned, I'm Viridiana Murillo, Pediatric and Rare Disease, Genetic and Rare Disease Scientist at Científica Latina.
And hi, my name is Rigo Garcia. I'm the Executive Director of the Hemophilia Foundation of Southern California. We provide resources for people with bleeding disorders.
Good morning, I'm Gina Glass with Dreamsickle Kids Foundation in Nevada, and we support patients and families affected by sickle cell disease and other rare diseases.
Hi everyone, I'm Magnolia Wang. I do research on a rare disease called Native American myopathy, a rare disease that disproportionately affects members of the Lumbee tribe in North Carolina. And I will be starting my medical education as a medical student at Duke University this fall.
I am so glad to be here today with our amazing panelists. And so to get this conversation or this panel started, Rigo, can you please tell us, what does health equity mean to you from your perspective and through the lens of the community that you serve?
Yeah, so health equity for me means that we're able to provide resources to all of our community members equally. But that doesn't mean that when we provide the services equally that we're all getting the same things. We have to take into account our disease, we have to take into account our background, we have to take into account what we bring to the table. And that's what I feel is health equity for myself and for the community that we service, is that not everybody gets the same services, but we need to take into consideration everything that they bring to the table to be able to provide services that are equal to all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing what that means to you and having it be representative of all. Gina, would you please tell us how do you define health equity?
So I would say echo what Rico said, and health equity is working to remove those barriers that often marginalized communities face with access to care. Also for me, being a part of the rare disease space and being the mother of a child with sickle cell disease, I believe that our fight for health equity isn't just about access to care and treatments. It's also about ensuring that our unique needs are understood and met by the healthcare community.
Thank you for giving us some insight into what that looks like as a professional and as a mom to a rare kiddo. Magnolia, would you please tell us what health equity, how do you define that from where you are?
Yeah, I definitely stand by what both Rigo and Gina have said. I think as someone who has been involved in the advocacy side, I've realized that really patient communities, regardless of the size, they really deserve the same access and quality of healthcare as any standard patient population. And it's often the times that these patient populations that are small may be overlooked, and they really deserve more attention and more accessibility than any other patient group. So I think it's really being able to as Gina mentioned, break past those barriers and being able to really bring and listen to patients and their lived experiences and bring that to the table. When you search up what equity looks like on Google Images, you'll see like people of 3 different heights trying to see like a baseball game. And I kind of see health equity in the same light. The shortest kid who's trying to see the baseball has the highest step stool. So I see health equity as being from the healthcare or medical stakeholder perspective, really conducting quality of life research, interviews one-on-one with patients to really understand what it's like to go through the disease and being able to offer a different realm of resources and treatments as well as support.
That was a really great example. Thank you for providing, for those of us that are more visual, that example of what health equity looks like in the example of the baseball, watching the baseball game. Would you please elaborate when you say access to healthcare? And I know you worked with the underserved communities with STAT-C3 or STAT-C3. Can you tell us what does, in your eyes, what does bringing and providing equitable access to these communities look like?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. So really the STAT-3 disorder affects the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina. They're situated near the Lumberton, Pembroke area, which is a few hours away from the main research hospitals in North Carolina, that being UNC Chapel Hill, Duke. So naturally, it takes hours to drive to get genetic counseling appointments, to see physicians. And in fact, since it's a more rural area, the Wi-Fi connection for telehealth visits also is not strong, it's not steady. So I've been told by many attending physicians that it's difficult to reach these patients. So I'm hoping through the advocacy organization I spearheaded, stack3.org, to conduct quality of life research and bring the patient's perspectives and experiences to pediatricians in the local area so that they can be on the lookout for certain signs and symptoms of patients with STAC3 and refer them to the right healthcare providers, or themselves be able to offer the treatment necessary. And in this case, currently it's a combination of occupational therapy, physical therapy, and so I'm just hoping that people in the local region will have that education and knowledge to recognize the disorder and bring them care in a faster way.
Thank you so much for sharing not only what it would look like to bring access to these communities, but the initiatives that you have led to bring access to these communities. So thank you so much for that and the work that you do and the advocacy that you continue to do. And with that, we'll follow with you, Gina. Can you please tell us, what does it look like to have an inclusive environment for communities bringing health equity through inclusivity?
I think that we in the rare disease community have to be intentional about engaging minorities and underrepresented communities that are impacted by rare disease, and that would look like, representation and engaging with those communities, not just reaching out to them, but collaborating with them and giving them a space for their voice to be heard. Ensuring that the messaging is inclusive from the posters, digital content, and events like these where they can see themselves in the events and where we show like the diversity that is the rare disease community, and also being intentional about how we advocate for those minority and underrepresented communities when it comes to policymakers, healthcare, and just different social support from pharmaceutical companies and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And that goes to speak for what we are seeing in the room here with each of you here, with the companies that we have here, and also other people representing, whether it's legislative, just having these conversations, being here, using our voices, using your voices, sharing your story, and just being here, even you, each of you. So everyone here in this room plays a part in what it means to bring health equity for our communities. And so that with that, we followed with you, Rigo. Can you please tell me what is one of the most important things I mean, I know there's a lot, but one highlight or one important thing that you have brought special attention to through the work that you do in the Hemophilia Foundation that can be applicable to our rare disease community?
Yeah, I think one of the things with health equity, what we need to know is that one of the things I brought to the Hemophilia Foundation is really making sure that people know who we are and what our disease means. A lot of people do not understand that, and that's one of the things that is a little difficult. If I was to ask all of you out here what your rare disease is, raise your hand if you can explain it to me. So this is one of those things, is that we are the experts. You know, we are the experts of our disease. So one of the things that we need to do is how can we relay that information to the rest of the community and to the rest of the world? How do we be seen? We have a platform. But how do we get heard and how do we move it forward? And I think as a foundation, one of the things that I'm trying to do with the Hemophilia Foundation, and this goes for all rare diseases, is make sure that everyone that we're interacting with knows our disease. This means that do you need to work with a foundation like mine to be able to create a one-hander that we, unfortunately, I know this is bad, but unfortunately we need to carry with us? Or is it a QR code that we could leave at our medical doctors? You know, the front desk nursing staff, you know, the receptionists, because sometimes they don't understand that there are certain things that we need being rare that not the rest of the community needs. You know, if we're going to be on a flight, whatever it may be, there's these handouts that we may need to explain to everybody so that this health equity is heard by all of us. One of the things with that is not only being able to have this information, but have it in a manner that people understand in the communities we're working with. Is it African American? Is it Latino? Is it white? Is it Asian? You know, one of the things we are very proud of is that we host one of the largest all Spanish conferences in the nation for bleeding disorders. And we have over 700 community members, and it's in a language that our community understands. This is something that is not available for many of our Latino and Spanish, our monolingual Spanish-speaking community, and this is one of those things that we want to do. We want to be able to educate so that you're able to then advocate for yourself. And that's one of the biggest things with health equity that I feel we need to do more of. Our foundations, I know NORD is very involved with that, and that's something that I feel that can benefit all of us.
Absolutely. There was a lot of take-homes there, but one that really stuck with me is we need to be able to educate to advocate. And so you said a lot of things, and I just want to highlight again when you said a one-pager. I think that is a great idea to have a one-pager or information on a QR code. That's something that everyone here can take home, can bring with them. But really, I think everyone in this room, and as patients, families, professionals in the field, we get to educate others, and we get to bring that with us wherever we go. So thank you for that. And so, since I have you in the conversation right here, let's talk about some of the biggest triumphs you've seen. One of the biggest triumphs, I know you mentioned the Familia de Sangre conference. What are some of the biggest triumphs that you've encountered, fostered, built, and how can we as a community apply that or work towards something like that?
Yeah, one of the things that I would say that we're really happy about and we've really started to grow is the advocacy work we do. We don't want to talk to our local elected officials or our state officials or even our DC officials, you know, because we feel, who are we? Are they going to listen to us? They have so many things on their plate. Are we important? But I think one of the biggest things that I've done with our community is start local. Let's start local with our city officials. You know, let them know about what's happening. I went to 3 small cities this year, and, you know, we made March National Bleeding Disorders Month because that's something that we do. You know, and these were small cities in Southern California. But I think getting the word out there, getting the community to go out there and just to be able to speak to these elected officials and know that, hey, they're just who like us, you know, they have no special power, they hold no special power, and being able to do that so that we can then learn and our community learn how to advocate at a larger scale and be able to make those changes within the healthcare system, the medication that we receive, and the services that we need as a rare community?
I think you hit on a lot of great points there. And going off of the community topic, and as you mentioned, it's about not reinventing the wheel. It's, as a community, we should be able to lean on each other, have that support, have that help. But we have this network, we have this community. And so, as we often say, alone we are rare, but together we are strong. And that's a great example. Together we are strong. And together there's so much we can accomplish. So thank you for that. And Gina, we've talked about inclusivity, we've talked about using our voice. Can you please talk to us about the challenges that you have seen in the community that might be relatable to the rest of our community here at large? Can you please tell us some of the challenges you've encountered and how you've overcome them, or your community has overcome them?
So I can say, just speaking from personal experience of when I first started connecting and becoming a part of the rare disease community, initially I would come to events like this, and sometimes I would be the only person of color at those events, and the topics and the content did not resonate with me because I didn't see myself in those topics and contents. And just over the past 5-6 years, just seeing each year that there has been, more diversity, seeing more people of color at these events, seeing, sometimes seeing people of color on the flyers, the posters and things at the event. So this space becoming a more welcoming space for minorities impacted by rare diseases. Speaking specifically to the sickle cell community, just seeing year after year that we are becoming more active in this space and present in this space, going from maybe 1 or 2 people when I first started to 5 to 10 to we just probably had over 100 that were at Rare Disease Week this year. And even here having other sickle cell advocates here. We have Andre over there. Hey, Andre. But just seeing not only, people affected by sickle cell, which is just one of the thousands of rare diseases, but seeing other people of color, other African Americans that are affected by different rare diseases coming out to these events and advocating. So I think that's a really good example of how, NORD and the larger rare disease organizations are being intentional about being more inclusive and having more representation for minorities, people of color that are impacted by rare disease. Specifically to the sickle cell community, our community, we're very intentional. We have multi-lingual literature that we have in English and Spanish about sickle cell because we recognize that there is a population of people that are Hispanic that are affected by sickle cell. Globally, we collaborate with patients and experts from other regions of the world, especially those where there's a higher prevalence of sickle cell, like Africa and India, recognizing that their experiences and their needs differ from ours. So bringing their voices to the forefront, I think that's another good triumph for us in this rare disease space, trying to improve health equity.
Absolutely. I'm over here smiling. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you to each of you that are here, because as she mentioned, it's important that we're in these rooms. It's important that each of you are here sharing your stories, being seen. And you spoke to the importance of being seen, being understood, and having access to these resources in a way that makes sense to each and every one of us. And so, thank you for that. Thank you for your response. And Magnolia, I know that you've shared a little bit of your experiences and what you've seen. So we've talked about some of the triumphs. We've talked about some of the challenges. And you've spoken a little bit to that, to the challenges that the community has seen. But can you speak to the resilience that you have seen in your community and what you have learned from working with the community that you work with that is applicable to our community here and to everyone here in this room?
Yeah, certainly. I think really the main message and lesson I learned in conducting research is really being respectful and developing this cultural competence, developing deep connections, fostering relationships with the community, amongst the community, and also with several healthcare stakeholders and providers. So when I set out to do the quality of life research, we were trying to understand more about these patients' lived experiences, but when we were sending out the questionnaire through email to the patient's contacts, through the medical charts, we didn't really get that many responses. And we weren't surprised because this is an ultra-rare disorder. It affects 1 in 5,000 in the Lumbee population itself. But it wasn't until I thought, I don't think really email is going to cut it. I think I need to really take the step further and develop a personal connection before I just go about this patient community and send things out just as the IRB conventional method is. So what I did was, with the help of my mentor, Dr. Cynthia Powell at UNC Chapel Hill, we reached out to a woman. Both of her children were affected with this really rare disease, and she was an adamant advocate, and she was the founder of the Facebook group that connected and supported all the families with this disorder. And so we reached out to her and explained the aims of our study, and she was gracious enough to reach out to all of her contacts and spread the word through the Facebook group. And eventually we were able to interview 17 patients and their families, which was way more than what we had expected. And they were more than happy to tell us about their stories when we explained to them that we really wanted to help advocate and champion their needs. And so I think it's really, the take-home message for me is, in order to break down these barriers, it's really establishing patient trust through a respectful manner, and even advocating through and to different medical providers in the community. I used to lead the Students for Rare chapter at University of Pennsylvania, where I did my undergrad, and one of the highlights was involving my club in lighting up for Rare Disease Day on the pavilion, the Hospital of University of Pennsylvania pavilion, and we shown our new pavilion in the colors, the pink, green, yellow, blue colors, and I think it's being able to establish inter-patient connections as well as developing avenues of communication with other healthcare providers.
Thank you for that. Thank you for speaking on the importance of delivering and having a personal connection, a personalized approach, and why that is so important. Thank you for giving us a visual of what that looked like through your research. And I am so grateful for all of your responses. I don't know about you, but I feel like they shared a lot of very valuable pieces of information, recommendations, and a lot of stories that connect. So thank you for the valuable insight you've provided today. I would like to ask if any one of you would like to give us some final words, some final remarks, something to take home for our audience.
Yeah, one thing that I will say is that, we come to a lot of different conferences, we come to a lot of different education sessions and whatnot. What I would say is really try to see through these breakout sessions, through panels like ours, what is one thing that I can take home and make a difference with my rare disease, make people know a bit more about my rare disease, or how can I make a difference? I think that's gonna make a major difference. If we all do that, we won't be the minority, and our voices will be loud, our voices will be heard. And I think when we hear rare disease, it's just gonna be like if we're talking about diabetes or high blood pressure. So that's one thing that I would say to everybody, is to make sure that you're able to take something home and make a difference once you leave the conference.
Thank you. And I have seen a lot of you networking, exchanging your stories, exchanging information, building those connections. And so I encourage you to continue building those relationships. You're welcome to talk to our panelists during the rest of the conference or myself, and I would love to connect with you. But yes, connect with each other, and let's enjoy the rest of this conference. And with that, we'll lead on to Q&A. Oh, with that, we'll take another minute while she's coming up. And Gina or Magnolia, would you like to share any final words with our audience before we transfer it over for Q&A?
I would just like to say that to improve and promote health equity, it requires action. So if you can think about something that you can actually do before you leave this conference, connecting with other individuals from other, rare disease communities, those from minority communities, we all have been coming to these things for a long time, so we have our people that we know, but connect with somebody that you don't know, and not just the hi and exchange your card. When you exchange your card, send them an email next week, or if you might forget, send an email the same day and just say, hey, I'm just sending you this so I'm at the top of your list, and make a connection and see how you guys can potentially collaborate to help, improve health equity and promote better health outcomes for the rare disease community. So take some sort of action.
Thank you. Yes, did everyone hear that? Let's take action so we can continue moving these conversations, these actions, and drive towards a more equitable health outcomes for all of us.
Thank
Tiffany.
you.
Sorry.
We do have a couple questions here. If you have written your question on a note card, if you could just raise them in the air so our staff can go around and collect those, we will be happy to do so. So the couple that we've received says, what measures are being taken to ensure more equitable inclusion and enrollment in clinical trials for rare disorders?
Well, I think one of the things that needs to be done with clinical trials is that we need to be able to understand the communities that we're working with. A lot of the times with the clinical trial, we'll go into a clinical trial or it's presented to us at the doctor's office. For many of our communities, the decision is not made with that person alone. It's made with the family. It's made with everyone that needs to understand that. And I think that's where a lot of times with clinical trials, it's missed. Is that, they want you to make a decision then and there, where we do need to bring it back to our community, be able to understand it, and then with that, not just be able to take home information, but have it in a language and a literacy level that we all understand. Take all the medical stuff out and tell me what I'm going to go through. And I think that's what makes it difficult to get anybody into any type of clinical trials. It'd be a minority, it'd be someone Spanish speaking, or it'd be someone that doesn't understand what we're signing up for.
Thanks, Rigo. This one says, I know two of you are from advocacy organizations. Could you please share steps rare disease advocacy organizations can take to advance health equity?
Yeah, I think it's having open eyes and open ears to looking out for patients and families that might come along the way. And actually, I really have to thank NORD on this because it was through my undergrad biology class where I learned about founder's effect. And I was really curious to see what were the real life applications of that. And it was through NORD, the disease index, that I found about Native American myopathy, and that's how I got interested. And that's what led me to reach out to the different physician stakeholders in the field and really realize that there's not much literature or research efforts being devoted to focusing on how the patient's social, economic, quality of life factors were manifesting. And so that really, I was just keeping my eyes and ears open to different rare diseases, and that's what spurred my love for reaching out to different members in my college campus community. Maybe they have family members who were affected by a rare disease. Maybe they were just really interested in learning more, and that's how I brought together different classmates and even faculty to join my Students for Rare chapter, and that's how we began doing Rare Disease Day on campus and really growing our club on my undergraduate campus.
I think that some steps that can be taken to improve health equity as an advocacy organization is actually going into the different communities. There's only so much we can do through, social media and things like that, or from behind a desk. You actually have to go into those communities to understand their needs and understand their experiences and how you can support them rather than trying to figure out what's best for them. Just because you are a part of an advocacy organization, you have to involve them in whatever it is that you're doing that is for their benefit, that will help improve the equity and the health outcomes for that community. You have to go into the community. You can't just sit behind your desk and advocate.
Thank you for that. We have another question back here. And I was just speaking with her a little bit, and she said, you know, my disease is extremely rare, or some would say ultra rare. And she said, what is being done to increase those research models for people with very, very limited patient populations?
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. And in particular, in the experience working with this ultra-rare disease population, I think it really starts off as one-on-one interviews and getting almost like an ethnographic sense of way to conduct the research. Even though I know in the literature, at least for my disease, there's scatterings of case reports, I think being able to research what questions particularly to ask in developing the one-on-one interview process is vital. And so, at least for my quality of life research study that I've done, is I've looked at the PQL, the Pediatric Quality of Life Questionnaire, to ask the parent how is their child affected? Can they go to school? Can they tie their own shoes? Can they bathe themselves? And I also looked at the NIH Quality of Life and Accessibility Questionnaire, and I pulled a few questions from there to ask the family and ask the parents during that session. And then I take their responses verbatim, and I bring it to my clinical team and my advisory board team, and we incorporate it in the research manuscript that we're trying to, that's currently under review for publication. So I think it's really being able to sequester individualized patient responses at first, and in the meantime, doing some advocacy work, working with the mother in that Facebook group to get an aggregate number of responses and seeing, you know, across the board, especially with a heterogeneous patient population, are there differences in the quality of life that's reported amongst, say, Black or indigenous patients versus patients, white patients, or patients who are, you know, who are Asian. So I think it's being able to isolate individualized responses while doing more advocacy work to eventually get us to aggregate responses.
Great, thank you. We have another one here. It says, within an organizational point, how is health equity measured? Sometimes we measure it through attendance and events, which does not give a true impact of the work being done.
I think how we measure health equity is not just in the numbers, but it's what are we doing and what are the changes that are coming through. I think that's one of the things that we definitely need to take a look at when we're looking at health equity. You know, when we're looking at, for example, improving the medication and health insurance and how the reimbursement and all co-pays counts. You know, which is one of those things that a lot of us with rare diseases are being affected. You know, looking at this state by state and how it's making traction on a state by state level where all co-pays counts, it has passed through like 17, 18 states, you know, and we're going through that. That's a way that we can measure health equity because we're removing those barriers for a lot of those that may be on Medicare. You know, here in California, we call it Medi-Cal. You know, but that's a way that we're able to measure health equity. It's not just in the numbers. You can have 3 people that attend an event, but those 3 people could be very boisterous, can be very loud, and can go out in the community and make a major difference. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do. But with that, be able to work together. And I think we need to work together across the rare diseases and not feel that this is my disease, I'm not going to work with anybody else. I think that's where NORD does a great job that brings us together. Figure out what are our similarities beyond our differences, and how can we bring that to move the needle with health equity.
Thank you. I believe that's all the questions that we have, so thank you all.